The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy that flows through stars, planets, and the void between them. But what happens when something tears through that web from outside? Something that answers to neither light nor dark, but to a power far older and more primal. The Sith believed they had mastered the dark side. The surviving Jedi clung to hope that the light would return. Neither understood that judgment was coming, riding on wheels of hellfire through the space between dimensions. It began with a scream that no one heard, a ripping, tearing sound that existed outside conventional reality. On Lothal, a backwater world in the Outer Rim firmly under Imperial control, the night sky split open, not with the familiar blue-white tunnel of hyperspace, but with something else entirely. Crimson and orange flames that burned without fuel, without oxygen, without reason. A dimensional wound that bled fire into the Star Wars galaxy. The rift lasted only seconds before collapsing, but in that moment, something fell through. Something that roared with twin engines and left a trail of supernatural flames scorching the air itself. The Hell Cycle hit Lothal's dusty plains at terminal velocity, wheels screaming as they found purchase on alien soil. The rider atop it was wreathed in flame, a skull where a head should be, leather and chains wrapped around an impossible frame. Johnny Blaze? No, not Johnny anymore. Not when the spirit of vengeance held control. Felt the wrongness immediately. This wasn't Earth. The stars were wrong, the air tasted different, and there was something else. An energy that permeated everything, pushing against his essence like water against oil. Not hostile, but incompatible, foreign. The Ghost Rider's flaming skull turned, surveying the landscape. Rocky outcroppings and distant lights that formed geometric patterns. A settlement, or perhaps a city. The spirit of vengeance could sense something else too, something that made the hellfire burn hotter. Guilt, pain, suffering. It saturated this world like blood in water, and it called to him with a voice that transcended language. This place was drowning in sin. The Hell Cycle's engine growled, flames licking up from the wheels as Ghost Rider twisted the throttle. Whatever had pulled him through dimensions, whatever cosmic mistake or demonic machination had brought him here, didn't matter now. The spirit of vengeance had one purpose, one function that remained constant across universes and realities. The guilty must be punished. In the distance, Capital City sprawled across Lothal's surface, a settlement that had grown from frontier town to imperial stronghold in the years since the Empire's rise to power. White armored stormtroopers patrolled streets where citizens hurried with heads down, avoiding eye contact. TIE fighters screamed overhead on routine patrols. Imperial star destroyers hung in orbit like predatory fish, their wedge-shaped hulls casting shadows over the planet. None of them knew what was coming. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The first patrol encountered Ghost Rider 3 kilometers outside Capital City, 2 Imperial speeder bikes, standard reconnaissance pattern, 2 scout troopers scanning for rebel activity. Their helmet displays picked up the heat signature first, a reading so intense it had to be a malfunction. Then they saw him, a figure on a burning motorcycle, leaving a trail of fire that defied physics. The flames didn't spread to the dry grass, didn't consume fuel. They simply existed, hellish and unnatural, casting everything in shades of orange and crimson that had no business in this galaxy. Command, this is Scout 77. We have an unidentified vehicle approaching from Sector 4, requesting backup and identification protocols. The trooper's voice was steady, professional. He'd seen strange things in the Outer Rim before. He'd never seen anything like this. Ghost Rider didn't slow. The Hell Cycle accelerated, impossible physics carrying it across terrain that would have destroyed any conventional vehicle. The scout troopers raised their blaster rifles, training kicking in even as their minds struggled to process what they were seeing. Halt! By order of the Galactic Empire, Stop your vehicle and identify yourself." The Ghost Rider's response was a chain, manifesting from Hellfire itself, whipping out with supernatural speed. It wrapped around the first speeder bike, and where the chain touched metal, the metal screamed. Not the sound of stressed materials, an actual scream, as if the machine itself felt agony. The bike crumpled, twisting in ways that violated its structural design, throwing its rider. The second trooper fired. Blue blaster bolts lanced through the night, and several found their target. They passed through Ghost Rider's burning form, dissipating against something that wasn't quite physical matter. The spirit of vengeance turned its empty eye sockets toward the shooter, and the trooper felt something he'd never experienced in all his Imperial training. True primal terror. The Hell Cycle leapt forward, covering the distance in a heartbeat. Ghost Rider's burning hand reached out, fingers wrapping around the trooper's helmet. The plastoid armor meant nothing. The thermal regulation systems meant nothing. All that mattered was the connection, soul to soul, sin to judgment. "Look into my eyes." The voice that came from Ghost Rider's flaming skull wasn't human. It was layered, ancient, carrying the weight of countless damned souls. The trooper's visor cracked, and beneath it, his eyes met the rider's empty sockets. The penance stare activated. Imperial Scout Trooper TK-7739 had a name once, before the Empire. He'd had a family on Corellia, had dreams of being a pilot. Then came conscription, training, indoctrination. He'd followed orders, always followed orders. The orders that had him fire on unarmed protesters on Gorse. The orders that had him round up families on Ryloth for resettlement. The orders that had him stand guard while Inquisitors tortured prisoners for information about surviving Jedi. Just following orders, just doing his duty. Now, in the span of 3 seconds that felt like 3 lifetimes, he experienced every moment of pain he'd caused. Every blaster shot that found flesh. Every child's cry as parents were dragged away. Every moment of suffering that could be traced back to his actions, his complicity, his willingness to be a cog in the Empire's machine of oppression. The trooper screamed. It was a sound that carried across the plains, raw and broken, the sound of a soul confronting the weight of its own sins all at once. When Ghost Rider released him, the trooper collapsed. Still breathing, still alive, but forever changed. The spirit of vengeance didn't kill, it judged. Death was mercy. Understanding was punishment. The Hell Cycle's engine roared again, flames dancing higher as Ghost Rider turned toward the lights of Capital City. The spirit could feel them now, thousands upon thousands of guilty souls, each one adding to the chorus that called for judgment. Imperial officers who'd ordered orbital bombardments, stormtroopers who'd executed civilians, administrators who'd processed slaves for the spice mines, inquisitors who'd hunted children. And somewhere, deeper in the darkness, something else. A presence so steeped in suffering and guilt that it burned like a dark star, visible to the rider's supernatural senses, even across star systems. Ghost Rider didn't know about the Force, didn't understand the conflict between Jedi and Sith, between light and dark. It didn't matter. The spirit of vengeance was older than such distinctions, simpler in its purpose. The guilty must burn. And in this galaxy, under the iron fist of the Galactic Empire, there were so many guilty. The flames of the Hell Cycle brightened, casting long shadows across Lothal's plains as the rider advanced on Capital City. Behind him, one scout trooper lay broken by the weight of his own sins. The other had fled, babbling into his comlink about demons and hellfire, words that would be dismissed as stress-induced hallucinations, until the reports started multiplying. In the Imperial garrison, alarms began to sound. On the Star Destroyer in orbit, officers reviewed sensor data that made no sense. And in the shadows of Capital City's industrial sector, a small cell of rebel sympathizers watched the approaching Hellfire and wondered if their prayers for salvation had been answered. Or if something far worse than the Empire had just arrived on Lothal. The Imperial garrison on Lothal had seen its share of threats. Rebel saboteurs, smuggler gangs, the occasional rogue Jedi survivor trying to hide among the population. Commander Brom Titus, stationed at Capital City's Central Command, had handled them all with cold Imperial efficiency. He'd earned his rank through ruthlessness, crushing dissent with overwhelming force and making examples of those who dared defy Imperial authority. But the reports coming through his command console made no sense. "Say again, Scout 7-8. You're telling me your partner was attacked by a burning skeleton on a motorcycle?" Titus kept his voice level, professional, even as irritation crept into his tone. "Have you been drinking Corellian whiskey on duty?" "Sir, I know how it sounds, but I'm looking at TK-7739 right now. He's catatonic. Won't stop screaming about fire and judgment. The medics can't find anything physically wrong with him, but his neural scans are..." The scout trooper's voice cracked. "Sir, I saw it. The flames were real. The chain was real. And whatever that thing did to 7739, it broke something inside him." Titus terminated the connection and pulled up the patrol's helmet cam footage. The data was corrupted, massive electromagnetic interference that had fried most of the recording systems. But in the fragments that remained, he saw enough. A figure wreathed in fire, flames that burned without fuel, and a brief, horrifying glimpse of a skull where a face should be. The commander's jaw tightened. In the Empire, the impossible was just another problem requiring the correct application of force. Whatever this thing was, experimental rebel weapon, rogue alien entity, or force wielder using parlor tricks, it would burn under Imperial firepower like everything else. "Get me Captain Brunson of the Lawbringer," Titus ordered his communications officer. "I want AT deployment authorized and 3 full squadrons of stormtroopers ready for combat operations, and send word to the Inquisitorius. If this is a Force user, they'll want to know." What Commander Titus didn't understand was that Ghost Rider wasn't approaching with stealth or strategy. The spirit of vengeance didn't hide. It didn't need to. The Hell Cycle roared straight down the main highway leading into Capital City, flames trailing behind like a comet's tail, visible for kilometers in every direction. Citizens scattered as the burning figure approached, pressing themselves against buildings and diving into alleys. They'd learned to avoid attention under Imperial rule, to keep their heads down and survive. But this was something different, something that made even the most jaded citizens stop and stare. The roadblock came into view 2 kilometers from the city center. The Empire had mobilized quickly. Titus had to give them that much. 20 stormtroopers in formation, 3 speeder bikes, 2 ATSTs towering over the barricade with their chin-mounted blaster cannons trained forward. Portable shield generators hummed, creating overlapping energy barriers designed to stop anything from a charging Ronto to a stolen land speeder. They'd never been designed to stop Hellfire. Ghost Rider didn't slow. The Hell Cycle hit the energy barriers at full speed, and the shields exploded in cascades of sparks. Not shorted out, consumed. The Hellfire ate through the energy fields like they were paper, leaving nothing but dissipating ozone and the smell of burning circuitry. "Open fire!" The ATSTs unleashed their chin cannons, medium blaster fire that could punch through reinforced armor plating. The bolts struck Ghost Rider dead on, and for a moment, the stormtroopers thought they'd succeeded. Then the flames simply reformed, the spirit of vengeance riding through the barrage as if it were nothing more than rain. 20 stormtroopers fired in concert, trained precision creating a killing field of blaster bolts. Ghost Rider's chain whipped out, moving with impossible speed, deflecting some shots while others passed harmlessly through his burning form. The chain wrapped around an ATST's leg, and with strength that defied the rider's physical mass, he yanked. The walker toppled, its gyroscopic stabilizers screaming protests as tons of durasteel hit the permacrete with a thunderous crash. The second ATST pivoted, its pilot desperately trying to track the target that moved like nothing in his training simulations. Ghost Rider leaped from the Hell Cycle, landing on the walker's hull, and placed a burning hand against the cockpit viewport. The pilot inside made the mistake of looking up. of meeting those empty eye sockets. Look into my eyes. ATST pilot First Class Jonas Tyrrell had excellent service records. 17 confirmed anti-personnel actions, 12 successful vehicle eliminations, decorated for his role in suppressing the Lothal Agricultural Guild protests. He'd followed orders, done his duty, crushed the Empire's enemies beneath his walker's feet. Now those enemies looked back at him. Farmers shot while fleeing. Guild representatives executed for sedition. Children caught in crossfire that Tyrrell had dismissed as acceptable collateral. Every face, every name, every moment of pain compressed into 3 seconds of absolute judgment. Tyrrell's scream echoed inside the ATST's cockpit as he experienced every death he'd caused from the victim's perspective. His hands spasmed on the controls, and the walker fired, wildly, randomly, one blaster bolt taking out the portable generator, another striking a parked Imperial troop transport. Ghost Rider dropped from the walker, landing back on the Hell cycle as it rolled past. The stormtroopers were breaking formation now, training warring with instinct as they faced something that shouldn't exist. Several held their fire, weapons lowering as they processed what they'd just witnessed. Others fired frantically, desperately, hoping that enough firepower would eventually work. It didn't. The chain lashed out again and again, not killing, but disarming, wrapping around weapons and yanking them free. When Ghost Rider did make contact with the troopers themselves, his burning hands finding purchase on plastoid armor, he gave them the same gift, the same curse he'd given the others. The penance stare. One by one, stormtroopers collapsed. Some screamed, some wept. All of them broke under the weight of their own sins, forced to confront every atrocity they'd committed in the name of Imperial order. Following orders was no defense when the spirit of vengeance judged. Intent mattered less than impact. The Empire had built itself on a foundation of suffering, and every soldier who'd enforced that suffering now paid the price. Ghost Rider rode through the broken barricade, leaving behind 20 catatonic troopers and 2 disabled walkers. Capital City's towers loomed ahead, their lights reflecting off the Hell cycle's supernatural flames. Somewhere in those buildings, Commander Titus was watching through surveillance feeds, his face pale as he realized that conventional tactics were useless. "Get me the Inquisitors," he repeated into his comlink, voice tight. "I don't care if they're hunting Jedi scum halfway across the sector, we need them here, now." What Titus didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the Inquisitorius had already been alerted. The fifth brother, tasked with rooting out Force sensitives on Lothal and the surrounding systems, had felt the disturbance the moment Ghost Rider entered the galaxy. Not through the Force exactly. The spirit of vengeance didn't register as Force sensitive, created no ripples in the cosmic energy field that bound all living things. But the fifth brother had felt something else. A wrongness. A presence that existed outside the natural order, neither light nor dark, but something altogether different. And in the Empire's hierarchy of threats, anything that powerful and that unknown needed to be either controlled or destroyed. Preferably controlled, the dark side could always use new weapons. The fifth brother stood on the landing platform of his personal quarters, a converted warehouse in Lothal's industrial sector that served as his base of operations. He was a Pau'an male, tall and imposing, with grey skin marked by ritual scars and eyes that burned with dark side corruption. His double-bladed lightsaber hung at his belt, ready to ignite at a moment's notice. Beside him, his astromech droid beeped nervously, sensors overloaded by the thermal readings coming from the approaching entity. "Calm yourself," the fifth brother said, his voice a low rasp. "Whatever this creature is, it is powerful. But power can be bent, power can be broken, and power can be made to serve the Empire." He reached out through the Force, probing toward the source of the disturbance. What he found made him recoil instinctively. It was like touching a furnace, not the metaphorical flames of passion that fueled the dark side, but but actual searing heat that existed beyond the Force's influence. The presence didn't push back against his probe. It simply existed, immutable and ancient, paying no more attention to the fifth brother's Force sensitivity than a star pays attention to a moth. For the first time in years, the Inquisitor felt something he'd thought the dark side had burned away: uncertainty. But uncertainty was weakness, and the fifth brother had not survived the purge of the Jedi Temple, had not earned his place in the Inquisitorius by succumbing to weakness. He ignited his lightsaber, the twin crimson blades humming to life and casting red shadows across the platform. "Let it come," he said, watching as Hellfire appeared on the distant highway, growing closer with every second. "I will make it kneel, or I will make it burn." He didn't yet understand that Ghost Rider was already burning, had been burning since the spirit of vengeance bonded with its host, and that those flames had been consuming the guilty for far longer than the Sith had existed. The Hell Cycle's engine roared, echoing across Capital City as Ghost Rider rode toward the industrial sector. The spirit could sense the dark side user ahead, could feel the corruption that clung to him like oil. Another guilty soul, another name to add to the ledger of judgment. The fifth brother would soon learn what every other enemy of Ghost Rider had learned, from demons to demigods. You cannot intimidate vengeance itself. The industrial sector of Capital City was a maze of warehouses, fuel depots, and processing facilities, the grimy infrastructure that kept the Empire's war machine fed and functioning. Smokestacks belched grey exhaust into Lothal's sky, mixing with the glow of arc welders and the hum of cargo loaders working through the night. It was here, among the forgotten laborers and imperial supply chains, that the fifth brother had made his hunting ground. And it was here that Ghost Rider arrived in a storm of hellfire. The Hell Cycle tore through the sector's main thoroughfare, scattering dock workers and protocol droids alike. The flames reflected off durasteel walls and grimy viewports, turning the industrial zone into something that resembled the underworld from which the spirit of vengeance had originated. Workers pressed themselves against buildings, some making religious gestures from a dozen different faiths, all recognizing, on some primal level, that they were witnessing something beyond their understanding. Ghost Rider's flaming skull turned, supernatural senses tracking the concentration of darkness ahead. The fifth brother's presence burned like a beacon to the spirit of vengeance, not because of his connection to the Force, but because of the sins that stained his soul. The Inquisitor had been a Jedi once, before Order 66, before the Fall. He'd hunted his former brothers and sisters through the galaxy, tortured innocents for information, killed children who showed signs of Force sensitivity. The ledger of his crimes was long, and judgment was coming to collect. The fifth brother stood on the warehouse landing platform, his double-bladed lightsaber casting crimson light across his grey features. He'd sent his astromech away. This confrontation required no witnesses, no recordings that might show weakness. Around him, the Force swirled with anticipation, the dark side responding to his will as he prepared for combat. "I am the fifth brother of the Inquisitorius," he called out as Ghost Rider approached, his voice carrying the weight of imperial authority. "I serve the Galactic Empire and the dark side of the Force. You will cease your attack on Imperial personnel and submit to questioning. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Ghost Rider's response was to gun the Hell Cycle's throttle, launching up the access ramp toward the platform at impossible speed. The fifth brother extended his hand, calling upon the Force to halt the intruder's advanced telekinetic power lashed out, enough force to stop a charging bantha, to crumple durasteel like tissue paper. The Hell Cycle didn't even slow. The Force push dissipated against Ghost Rider like water against stone, not countered, not overcome, simply irrelevant. The spirit of vengeance existed outside the Force's dominion, a power that answered to different cosmic laws. The fifth brother's eyes widened in the instant before Ghost Rider reached the platform, a flicker of doubt crossing his scarred features. Then the rider was upon him. The chain manifested from Hellfire, wrapping around the fifth brother's lightsaber hilt and yanking it from his grip with supernatural strength. The weapon clattered across the platform, still ignited, its crimson blade sputtering. The Inquisitor snarled, calling upon the dark side, feeling it surge through his body with intoxicating power. He was trained in lightsaber combat, versed in the ways of fallen Jedi, augmented by years of hunting and killing. Ghost Rider grabbed him by the throat. The fifth brother had expected heat, had expected physical force. What he didn't expect was the sensation that crawled up his arm where Ghost Rider's burning fingers made contact. A feeling like ice despite the flames, a coldness that had nothing to do with temperature and everything to do with the absence of mercy. "Your dark side means nothing," Ghost Rider said, his voice layered with the screams of the damned. "Your force cannot protect you. Your empire cannot save you." The fifth brother tried to channel Force Lightning, the Emperor's gift to his Inquisitors. Purple-white energy crackled from his free hand, arcing toward Ghost Rider's skull with enough power to cook flesh from bone. The lightning struck, wrapped around the burning skeleton and fed the flames. The Hellfire burned brighter, drawing power from the dark side energy like fuel. The fifth brother's lightning didn't harm Ghost Rider. It made him stronger. The Inquisitor's face twisted in confusion, then fear as he realized that every weapon in his arsenal was useless against this entity. What are you?" the fifth brother gasped, clawing at the burning hand around his throat. "Look into my eyes." The fifth brother tried to resist, tried to close his eyes, to turn away, to use the Force to break free. But Ghost Rider's other hand came up, forcing the Inquisitor's face toward his own, and in that moment of contact, the penance stare activated with the full weight of the fifth brother's accumulated sins. The Inquisitor had been a Jedi Padawan named Proset Dibs before the fall. He'd questioned the Council, doubted their wisdom, felt the seduction of power calling to him even before Palpatine's coup. When Order 66 came, he'd made his choice: survival over principle, power over conviction. He'd taken the offer to become an Inquisitor, to hunt his former friends and mentors. Now he experienced every moment from their perspective. Master Ferren Bar, cornered on Mon Cala, feeling the lightsaber pierce his chest. The Padawan Sembave, no more than 12 years old, crying for help as the fifth brother dragged her to the torture chambers. The innocent shop owner on Rada, killed for harboring a Force-sensitive child he didn't even know existed. Every scream, every plea for mercy, every moment of terror that the fifth brother had inflicted in his service to the Empire. But it went deeper than that. The penance. Stare didn't just show victims, it showed consequences. The families destroyed, the communities shattered, the ripples of suffering that spread from every casual cruelty. The fifth brother saw the woman on Gorse who'd lost her husband to his interrogations, watched her spiral into despair and eventual suicide, saw the orphans created by his hunts, growing up broken and traumatized, saw the galaxy's hope dimming with every Jedi he extinguished. The fifth brother screamed, not the controlled, theatrical scream of a dark side user channeling anger, a raw, broken sound of a soul confronting its own monstrosity. His body convulsed, dark side energy crackling wildly around him as his mind tried to retreat into the comfortable lies he'd told himself, that he was following orders, that the Jedi had failed. That power justified everything. The penance stare burned those lies away like morning fog. When Ghost Rider released him, the fifth brother collapsed onto the platform, gasping. His lightsaber lay forgotten, its blades finally extinguished. The Inquisitor's hand shook, his mind trying to process the weight of what he'd experienced. He'd been before, broken by Order 66, reforged by the dark side. But this was different. This was judgment without the possibility of rationalization. Ghost Rider stood over him, Hellfire dancing across skeletal features. The spirit of vengeance didn't gloat, didn't threaten. It simply delivered its verdict, then moved on. The fifth brother would live with what he'd seen for the rest of his days. That was punishment enough. The guilty must burn, Ghost Rider said, turning back toward the Hell Cycle. This galaxy drowns in sin. The Empire's crimes cry out for judgment. Behind him, the fifth brother tried to speak, to summon the dark side, to do anything that might restore the certainty he'd lost. But all he could see were the faces. All he could hear were the screams. The dark side felt hollow now, empty, a poor substitute for the truth the penance stare had forced upon him. The Inquisitor would file no report, would send no warning. He would spend the next hours huddled in his quarters, staring at his hands, wondering how many more victims he'd forgotten. Wondering if there was enough penance in the galaxy to balance the scales. Ghost Rider mounted the Hell Cycle, its engine roaring back to life. The industrial sector spread before him, filled with thousands more Imperial personnel, each one complicit in the Empire's machinery of oppression. Officers who'd signed off on slave labor, stormtroopers who'd fired on peaceful protesters, administrators who'd processed deportations and executions. The spirit of vengeance could sense them all. But as Ghost Rider prepared to continue his judgment through Capital City, something changed. A presence, far more powerful than the fifth brother, made itself known. Not through proximity, this presence was distant, separated by light years and hyperspace routes. But it reached across that distance with a power that even the spirit of vengeance could feel. Darkness. Overwhelming, consuming darkness that had shaped entire star systems to its will. And within that darkness, something else. Suffering on a scale that dwarfed even the Empire's many atrocities. A single soul burning with guilt and pain, corrupted by decades of choices that compounded upon each other until redemption seemed impossible. Ghost Rider's flaming skull turned toward the sky, toward the stars where that presence dwelled. The Hell Cycle's flames burned brighter, responding to the challenge. The spirit of vengeance had faced demons, gods, and cosmic entities across universes. This presence, this Dark Lord, was just another name on the ledger. But first, Lothal. First, the immediate sins that cried out for judgment. The Hell Cycle roared forward, carrying Ghost Rider deeper into Capital City. Behind him, the fifth brother remained broken on the platform, and across the city, Commander Titus frantically tried to organize a defense against something that conventional warfare couldn't stop. In orbit above Lothal, aboard the Star Destroyer Lawbringer, Captain Brunson reviewed the reports with growing dread. Stormtroopers catatonic, an ATST pilot driven mad, the fifth brother not responding to communications, and the entity, the burning demon, still advancing through their territory like judgment incarnate. "Contact Imperial Command," Brunson ordered, her voice tight. "Tell them we have a Code Umbra situation on Lothal. Unknown hostile entity, immune to conventional weapons, possible Force user classification, requesting." She paused, the words difficult to say. "Requesting Lord Vader's intervention." The communications officer paled but transmitted the message. Across the hyperlanes, through relay stations and secure Imperial channels, the request traveled. On a distant world, in the depths of a meditation chamber, Darth Vader received the alert, and in the darkness of his fortress on Mustafar, the Dark Lord of the Sith opened his eyes. The message from Lothal reached Darth Vader while he stood in his meditation chamber on Mustafar, surrounded by the planet's volcanic fury. The Dark Lord had been deep in contemplation, using the dark side to search for surviving Jedi across the galaxy when the interruption came. His first instinct was annoyance. The Inquisitorius existed precisely to handle threats like rogue Force users without requiring his personal attention. But as he reviewed the transmitted data, annoyance transformed into something else. Curiosity, The holographic footage was fragmentary, damaged by electromagnetic interference, but what remained was unprecedented, a being wreathed in flames that didn't burn like fire but rather like captured starlight twisted into something primal. Stormtroopers dropping without physical wounds, an ATST pilot driven mad by a mere touch, and the fifth brother, one of his most effective inquisitors, reduced to a broken shell. Vader had seen many things in his years serving the Emperor, had witnessed Sith alchemy, ancient Force techniques, and weapons that defied conventional understanding. But this was different. The entity in the footage didn't move like a Force user. There was no elegance to its violence, no flow of energy that suggested connection to the cosmic force. It simply existed, as immutable as gravity. "Lord Vader," his communications officer said, voice carefully neutral. "Captain Brunson requests your presence on Lothal. They've classified the situation as Code Umbra, unknown hostile of extreme threat level." Vader was silent for a long moment, his respirator filling the chamber with its rhythmic breathing. Through the Force, he reached out toward Lothal, stretching his awareness across light years to touch the disturbance the reports described. What he found made him pause. Nothing, not emptiness, that would have been comprehensible, but a complete absence where something should be, like a hole cut in the fabric of the Force itself, a space where even the dark side couldn't penetrate. And yet, within that absence, Vader sensed something familiar. Not in form or function, but in essence. Pain. Eternal, unending pain. And beneath it, a purpose that transcended death itself. Vader knew something of curses, of being trapped in a form that brought nothing but suffering, of serving a purpose that allowed no escape. For just a moment, the Dark Lord wondered if this entity, whatever it was, understood that particular torment. "Prepare my shuttle," Vader commanded. "I will deal with this personally." On Lothal, Ghost Rider had carved a path of judgment through Capital City's Imperial garrison. 43 stormtroopers lay catatonic, their minds broken by the weight of their own sins. 7 officers had been reduced to weeping shells, unable to reconcile the Empire's propaganda with the reality of what they'd done in its name. An entire AT-AT crew had abandoned their walker, fleeing in terror after watching their commander receive the penance stare. Commander Titus had barricaded himself in the garrison's command center, surrounded by automated defenses and every remaining trooper who hadn't encountered the entity. His confidence had shattered along with his tactical superiority. Every weapon had failed. Every strategy had proven useless. The thing, the demon, simply advanced, unstoppable as a natural disaster. "Sir, we're receiving confirmation from Imperial Command," his communications officer reported, voice shaking. "Lord Vader is en route. ETA 2 standard hours." Titus felt relief war with dread. Lord Vader's reputation preceded him. The Emperor's enforcer, the Jedi killer, the most feared being in the galaxy. If anyone could stop this supernatural threat, it was him. But Vader's arrival also meant that Titus had failed, that his garrison had proven inadequate, and the Dark Lord did not tolerate failure. Still, 2 hours was better than the alternative. 2 hours to fortify defenses, to evacuate non-essential personnel, to prepare for either victory or catastrophic defeat. Ghost Rider, however, was not heading toward the garrison anymore. The spirit of vengeance had paused in the city's central plaza, surrounded by Imperial propaganda holograms showing the Emperor's benevolent rule and the Empire's glorious victories. The Hell Cycle's engine idled, flames crackling softly as Ghost Rider's empty eye sockets surveyed the area. Something had changed in the air, a shift in the composition of guilt and suffering that drew the rider's attention elsewhere. There, in the lower levels, beneath the city's gleaming Imperial architecture, not soldiers, but civilians. Laborers working in conditions that violated every safety regulation, forced into service by quotas and debt bondage. families torn apart by imperial edicts, children orphaned by executions and disappearances. The victims, Ghost Rider had spent hours hunting the guilty, delivering judgment to those who'd earned it through violence and cruelty. But the spirit of vengeance understood something that many forgot. Justice wasn't only about punishment, it was also about protection, about ensuring that the guilty could no longer harm the innocent. The Hell Cycle's engine roared, and Ghost Rider descended into Lothal's lower city, away from the Imperial garrison and toward the forgotten souls suffering under the Empire's boot. What he found there would have broken a lesser being. The labor camp occupied an old mining facility, repurposed by the Empire for processing Tibanna gas components. 200 workers, mostly human with a scattering of Ithorians and Rhodians, labored 16-hour shifts in conditions that would have been illegal under the old Republic guards in Imperial grey uniforms patrolled the perimeter, shock sticks ready to punish any slowdown in productivity. The camp overseer was a human named Grint Orlin, a mid-level bureaucrat who'd found that cruelty came naturally when paired with Imperial authority. He sat in his office, overlooking the work floor, reviewing production quotas and deciding which workers had failed to meet their numbers. Those workers would have their food rations cut. Repeat offenders would be transferred to the spice mines of Kessel, a death sentence dressed in administrative language. Orlin looked up from his datapad when the lights flickered, then died completely. Emergency lighting activated, bathing the facility in blood-red illumination that cast harsh shadows across the work floor. The overseer stood, irritation flashing across his features. Power failures were unacceptable, another metric that would reflect poorly on his performance reviews. Then he saw the flames. Ghost Rider rode through the facility's main entrance, the Hell Cycle's Hellfire providing its own illumination. Workers scattered, some crying out in fear, others frozen in place. The guards rushed forward, shock sticks raised, shouting orders that died in their throats when they got close enough to see what approached. "Halt! By order of..." The chain lashed out, wrapping around shock sticks and yanking them away. Ghost Rider didn't harm the guards, not yet. Instead, the burning skull turned toward each one in succession, and the spirit of vengeance weighed their souls in the balance. 3 guards dropped their weapons and fled. They'd followed orders, yes, but had shown mercy when possible, had turned blind eyes to small infractions, had retained some shred of compassion. The penance stare would have hurt them, but Ghost Rider judged their sins insufficient to warrant it. The other 4 weren't so fortunate. They'd enjoyed their power, had taken pleasure in wielding shock sticks against exhausted workers, had accepted bribes to single out specific prisoners for extra punishment, had turned a blind eye to fellow guards who'd taken liberties with female prisoners. Their guilt burned like signal fires to the spirit of vengeance. One by one, Ghost Rider forced them to look into his eyes. The guards collapsed, screaming, as their own cruelties were reflected back upon them. The workers watched in stunned silence, processing what they were witnessing. Some thought it was a rebel attack, come to free them. Others wondered if they were hallucinating from exhaustion and malnutrition. None of them understood what Ghost Rider truly was, but they understood that something had come to judge their oppressors. Overseer Orlin watched from his office viewport, his face pale. He reached for his comlink, fingers shaking as he tried to contact the garrison. "This is Camp 7-3. We are under attack by an unknown hostile. Request immediate." The office door exploded inward, torn from its frame by the Hell Cycle's passage. Orlin stumbled backward, tripping over his chair as Ghost Rider entered. The flames reflected off the office's polished surfaces, turning administrative efficiency into hellish mockery. "Please," Orlin gasped, hands raised in a warding gesture. "I'm just following Imperial protocols. I'm just doing my job. The workers are here legally, processed through proper channels. I haven't done anything wrong." Ghost Rider's skull tilted, as if considering the plea. Then the burning hand reached out, and Orlin made the fatal mistake of looking up, of meeting those empty eye sockets. Grint Orlin had processed 847 workers through his facility in the past 2 years. Of those, 93 had died from industrial accidents that proper safety equipment would have prevented. Equipment Orlin had deemed too expensive. 42 had been transferred to Kessel, where they'd perished in the spice mines. 17 had been beaten so severely by guards under his command that they'd never recovered, and countless others had simply broken under the weight of endless labor, their spirits crushed even if their bodies survived. All perfectly legal, all within imperial regulations, all part of his duty. The penance stare didn't care about legality. Orlin experienced every worker's death as if it were his own. Felt the lungs filling with toxic fumes because the ventilation system he'd refused to repair had failed. Felt the shock stick impacts that had broken ribs and shattered spirits. Felt the hopelessness of realizing that rescue would never come, that the Empire considered him expendable, that his life meant less than production quotas. When Ghost Rider released him, Orlin collapsed onto his office floor, sobbing. His carefully maintained justifications, the regulations, the protocols, the career advancement, had been stripped away, leaving only the raw truth of what he'd become, a monster who'd hidden behind bureaucracy. Ghost Rider turned away from the broken overseer and returned to the work floor. The remaining workers had gathered, watching with a mixture of fear and hope. They didn't know if this burning entity was friend or foe, savior or destroyer. The spirit of vengeance regarded them in silence for a long moment. Then, Ghost Rider raised one burning hand and gestured toward the facility's exit. The message was clear: go, leave, run. Some workers hesitated, conditioned by months or years of imprisonment to believe that escape was impossible. Others moved immediately, seizing the opportunity. A Rhodian woman helped an elderly human who could barely walk. An Ithorian gathered his work crew and headed for the exit. Within minutes, the facility was emptying, 200 souls flowing toward freedom. Ghost Rider watched them go, the Hell Cycle's engine purring softly. The spirit of vengeance had delivered judgment on the guilty and now offered mercy to the innocent. It was the balance that the ancient entity had maintained across countless worlds and realities. But as the last workers fled into Lothal's night, Ghost Rider sensed it. The presence that had reached out across the stars was drawing closer. The darkness that had shaped the galaxy's suffering was coming to investigate what had disrupted its empire. Darth Vader's shuttle dropped through Lothal's atmosphere, and the spirit of vengeance turned its flaming skull skyward. A reckoning was approaching. Darth Vader's Lambda-class shuttle descended through Lothal's atmosphere with the inexorability of a falling star. TIE fighters flanked it in precise formation, their distinctive scream announcing the Dark Lord's arrival to anyone who cared to listen. On the ground, Imperial personnel straightened their uniforms and checked their weapons, hoping that Vader's presence would restore order to a situation that had spiraled beyond their control. Commander Titus stood on the garrison landing platform, his posture rigid as the shuttle touched down with hydraulic precision. The boarding ramp extended, steam hissing from the mechanism, and then Vader emerged, a towering figure in black armor and flowing cape, his breathing apparatus filling the air with its mechanical rhythm. "Lord Vader," Titus said, bowing, "thank you for responding to our..." "Where is it?" Vader's voice cut through the pleasantries like a vibroblade through flesh. He had no patience for protocols or excuses. The reports had been clear enough. An entity of unknown origin was tearing through Imperial forces with impunity. That was all he needed to know. The entity was last reported in Sector 7, my lord, a labor processing facility. It has liberated the workers and incapacitated the guards. Our forces are maintaining perimeter at a safe distance, but we haven't attempted to engage since the Fifth Brothers. Titus hesitated. Incident. Vader turned toward the sector in question, extending his senses through the Force. Again, That strange absence, not emptiness, but something that resisted the Force's touch entirely. It was like trying to grasp smoke or pin down a shadow, yet Vader could feel the ripples around it, the way Imperial personnel's fear created eddies in the Force, marking the entity's path as clearly as footprints in snow. The fifth brother. Where is he? In the medical facility, Lord Vader. He's physically unharmed, but Titus chose his words carefully. The medics report severe psychological trauma. He keeps saying, "I saw them all," and won't elaborate further. They've sedated him for his own safety. Vader felt a flicker of something that might have been concern, buried beneath layers of dark side corruption and mechanical detachment. The Inquisitors were tools, yes, but effective tools were not easily replaced. Whatever had broken the fifth brother's mind had done so without laying a hand on him, a technique that suggested power beyond simple Force manipulation. "Take me to Sector 7, Vader commanded, striding toward a waiting AT-AT, "and clear all personnel from the area. I will handle this alone, my lord. Perhaps a full squadron of..." Vader's gesture was minimal, but Titus felt his throat constrict, invisible fingers pressing against his windpipe. The message was clear. Do not question. Do not suggest. Simply obey. "Yes, Lord Vader," Titus gasped when the pressure released. At once. Ghost Rider sensed Vader's approach long before the Dark Lord arrived. The Hell Cycle idled in the abandoned labor facility's central plaza, flames casting dancing shadows across empty workstations and discarded tools. The workers had fled into Lothal's lower city, disappearing into tunnels and safe houses that the Empire hadn't yet discovered. The guards and overseer remained, broken by the penance stare, their minds trapped in endless loops of their own crimes. The spirit of vengeance waited, burning skull turned toward the approaching darkness. This presence was different from the others, more powerful, more concentrated, but also more conflicted. Vader's guilt burned like a supernova, so intense that it created its own gravity well in the spiritual landscape. The Dark Lord carried suffering on a scale that dwarfed even his many victims. This would be interesting. The AT-AT's footfalls announced Vader's arrival, the massive walker's steps shaking the facility's durasteel structure. It stopped at the perimeter, and Vader descended via repulsor lift, his cape billowing in the industrial wind. He walked with absolute confidence, the Force flowing around him like water around stone, and Ghost Rider recognized the posture of a being who had not known true challenge in years. Pride. Another sin for the Ledger. You are the entity disrupting Imperial operations on Lothal, Vader stated, his vocabulator turning words into pronouncements. Not a question, a fact, delivered with the certainty of someone accustomed to absolute authority. You will stand down and submit to Imperial custody, or you will be destroyed. Ghost Rider's response was to gun the Hell Cycle's throttle, the flames intensifying as the spirit of vengeance regarded the Dark Lord. The two beings stood 50 meters apart, separated by an expanse of empty permacrete and the weight of their respective purposes. I am Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith and enforcer of the Emperor's will. I have destroyed Jedi Masters and crushed rebellions across 1,000 systems. Whatever power you possess, it is nothing compared to the dark side of the Force. The Hell Cycle's engine growled, and Ghost Rider spoke, his voice layered with the screams of the damned and the weight of absolute judgment. Your titles mean nothing. Your dark side is irrelevant. You are guilty, Anakin Skywalker, and the guilty must burn. Vader froze. The name, his true name, the one he'd buried beneath years of armor and rage and service to the Emperor, hit him like a physical blow. How did this entity know? The Emperor himself rarely used that name, understanding that it was a weapon that could cut both ways. For this creature to speak it so casually suggested knowledge that shouldn't exist. That name no longer has meaning, Vader said, his voice carrying an edge of anger that the vocabulator couldn't quite mask. Anakin Skywalker is dead. I destroyed him, just as I will destroy you. Vader extended his hand, and the Force surged forward with crushing power. Telekinetic energy sufficient to crumple an AT-ST-seized Ghost Rider, attempting to lift him from the Hell Cycle and dash him against the facility walls. The same technique Vader had used to break rebels and Jedi alike, refined through years of practice until it was as natural as breathing. Ghost Rider didn't move. The Force crashed against the spirit of vengeance like waves against a cliff, impressive in its power, utterly ineffective in its result. The Hellfire didn't even flicker. Ghost Rider sat astride the Hell Cycle, unmoved, unimpressed, untouchable by the energy that Vader commanded. For the first time in years, Darth Vader experienced genuine surprise. He tried again, channeling more power, drawing on the suffering of Lothal itself to fuel his attack. The Force screamed as Vader bent it to his will, creating pressure that should have shattered bone and pulped organs. The permacrete beneath Ghost Rider cracked, spiderwebbing outward from the point of impact. Ghost Rider remained motionless, a fixed point around which the Force itself seemed to flow without purchase. Impossible, Vader breathed, though whether the word was meant for himself or the entity before him was unclear. Nothing resisted the Force like this. Even Isalamiri created bubbles of absence, spaces where the Force couldn't reach. But this was something different. The Force touched Ghost Rider and simply stopped, as if encountering a wall built from principles that superseded even the cosmic energy that bound the galaxy. Ghost Rider raised one burning hand, and the chain manifested from Hellfire, whipping forward with supernatural speed. Vader's lightsaber ignited in a snap hiss of crimson energy, the blade moving in a defensive arc that had been perfected through countless duels. The chain struck the lightsaber, and Vader expected one of two outcomes. The chain would be severed by the plasma blade, or it would conduct energy and recoil. Neither happened. The chain wrapped around the lightsaber blade, Hellfire meeting plasma, and held. The two energies warred against each other. The elegant weapon of a more civilized age against the primal judgment of damnation itself. Sparks cascaded where they met, reality hiccuping as two fundamentally incompatible forces occupied the same space. Vader pulled, attempting to free his weapon. Ghost Rider pulled back, and the Dark Lord felt himself yanked forward despite his augmented strength and force-enhanced mass. It was like being caught in a tractor beam, except the Force pulling him had nothing to do with technology or the Force. It simply was. The Hell Cycle surged forward, and Ghost Rider released the chain, letting momentum carry Vader stumbling backward. The Dark Lord recovered instantly, years of combat experience overriding surprise, and unleashed Force lightning from his gauntleted hands. Purple-white energy crackled through the air, powerful enough to cook flesh and short out cybernetics. It was the Emperor's technique, refined by Vader's own rage and suffering, capable of reducing enemies to charred husks in seconds. The lightning struck Ghost Rider directly, wrapping around the flaming skeleton in a coruscating web of energy. And just as it had with the fifth brother, the Hellfire consumed it, drew power from it, burned brighter in response. "Your power feeds mine," Ghost Rider said, advancing on the Hell Cycle. "Your darkness strengthens the flames. You cannot harm what is already damned, Anakin Skywalker." Vader extinguished the lightning, his mind racing through tactical options with the speed of his cybernetic processors. This entity was immune to the Force, resistant to lightsabers, and actually fed on dark side energy. Every weapon in his arsenal had proven ineffective or counterproductive. He was facing something that shouldn't exist. A being that operated outside the rules that had governed the galaxy since the Sith and Jedi first waged their ancient wars. But Darth Vader had not survived the Clone Wars, had not destroyed the Jedi Order, had not become the Emperor's right hand by giving up when faced with the impossible. If the Force couldn't touch this entity, then he would use other means. If energy empowered it, then he would rely on physical force. Vader planted his feet and called upon the Force to enhance his own body, channeling power inward rather than outward. His already formidable strength doubled, tripled, augmented by the dark side until he could lift tons with his bare hands. He moved forward with surprising speed for something so heavily armored, his cape billowing behind him as he closed the distance. Ghost Rider met him head-on, dismounting from the Hell Cycle in a leap that defied physics. The two beings collided, Vader's gauntleted fist meeting Ghost Rider's burning hand. The impact created a shockwave that shattered viewports and bent Durasteel supports. They traded blows with devastating force, each strike carrying enough power to kill an ordinary being. Vader's mechanically enhanced punches struck with pile-driver force, his combat algorithms calculating optimal angles and weak points. Ghost Rider's burning fists answered with supernatural strength drawn from damnation itself, each impact leaving scorch marks on Vader's armor. For 20 seconds, they fought in brutal close combat, a clash between Darkside Enforcer and Spirit of Vengeance that would have been impossible to predict. Vader's armor began to show damage, blackened where Hellfire touched, dented where Ghost Rider's strength exceeded his defensive calculations. But Ghost Rider showed no weakness, no fatigue, no indication that Vader's attacks had any effect whatsoever. Then Ghost Rider's hands shot forward, faster than Vader's processors could track, and gripped the sides of his helmet. "Look into my eyes, Anakin Skywalker." Vader tried to break free, calling on every ounce of force power he possessed, tried to turn away, to avoid the gaze of those empty eye sockets. But Ghost Rider's grip was iron, and the Spirit of Vengeance would not be denied. Their eyes met, and the penance stare activated. Darth Vader had experienced pain before. He had burned on Mustafar, felt his flesh char and his lungs sear as the lava consumed him. He had awakened in the armor, trapped in a prison of metal and suffering that would last the rest of his life. He had endured the Emperor's displeasure, felt Force lightning course through his cybernetics as punishment for failure. Pain was an old companion, a constant presence in his existence. This was something different entirely. The penance stare bypassed his armor, his cybernetics, even his connection to the Force. It reached directly into whatever remained of Anakin Skywalker's soul and forced him to witness, truly witness, every sin he had committed since his fall to the dark side. The Jedi Temple burned again in his mind, but this time he experienced it from the perspective of his victims. He was Padawan Rivianu, barely 14, running through smoke-filled corridors as her former hero approached with ignited lightsaber. Felt her confusion. Why was Master Skywalker doing this? Transform into terror as the blade descended. Experienced the pain of betrayal cutting deeper than any physical wound, the final thought before death. I trusted you. He was Master Sindralig, battle master of the temple, defending younglings with every ounce of skill accumulated over decades. Felt the exhaustion as clone troopers poured in, overwhelming through numbers rather than expertise. Saw Anakin approaching, radiating darkness that felt wrong, corrupted, alien. Raised his lightsaber not to attack but to protect, hoping that something of his former student remained. Felt the shock when Anakin's blade pierced his chest without hesitation, without mercy, without the honor that should have existed between master and student. He was each of the younglings in the council chamber, cowering behind furniture as the man they'd been told to trust revealed his true nature. Felt their small hands gripping training sabers, knowing the weapons were useless but unable to comprehend any other defense. Experienced the moment of death multiplied by dozens, each child's final seconds stretched into eternity. Fear, pain, and the heartbreaking realization that the adults who should have protected them had failed. The penance stare didn't stop with the Temple. Vader was Senator Pasul Argente of the Corporate Alliance, captured after the Battle of Mustafar and executed in his own boardroom. Felt the desperation of trying to negotiate, to offer wealth and information in exchange for life. Experienced the crushing realization that Vader had no interest in negotiation, that mercy was no longer part of Anakin Skywalker's vocabulary. Felt the lightsaber's heat before the blade struck, and then nothing. He was Roan Shrine, a Jedi Knight who'd survived Order 66 and fled to the Outer Rim, experienced the exhaustion of years spent running, always looking over his shoulder, unable to trust anyone. Felt the moment when Vader found him anyway, when all the running proved meaningless. Experienced the futility of the final duel, knowing he was outmatched but fighting anyway, because that's what Jedi did. Felt bones break and organs rupture as Vader's power overwhelmed his defenses, and in the final moment, recognized the man beneath the armor, Anakin. Shrine had gasped, hoping for a glimmer of the hero who'd fought beside him during the Clone Wars. Vader had offered only death. He was Kerry Junda's Padawan, Trilla Suduri, captured and tortured by Inquisitors until the dark side seemed like salvation from the pain. Experienced the breaking point where Jedi teachings crumbled under the weight of systematic torture, felt the self-loathing that came with betraying everything she'd believed in, hunting her own kind to escape the suffering, and then felt Vader's displeasure when her obsession with her former master proved a weakness, his lightsaber ending her life as casually as one might discard a broken tool. The penance stare showed him the ripples too, the consequences that extended beyond immediate victims. Vader was Padme Amidala, feeling life slip away not from the force choke that had left her gasping, but from a broken heart. The man she'd loved, the father of her children, had become something monstrous. Better to die than live in a galaxy where such transformation was possible. Vader felt her final thoughts, not anger or betrayal, but pity. She'd pitied him, even as he'd destroyed everything they'd built together. He was Luke Skywalker as an infant, torn from his mother's dying arms, scattered to the edges of the galaxy to hide from his own father. Grew up on Tatooine not knowing his heritage, his potential, his connection to the greatest Jedi of the previous generation, experienced the loneliness of a farm boy who dreamed of more but found only endless sand and disappointed guardians who could never explain why they looked at him with such sadness. He was Leia Organa, adopted daughter of Bail and Breha, growing up on Alderaan with diplomatic grace and hidden strength. Vader felt her connection to the Force, untrained, unrecognized, but present nonetheless. Felt the hole in her life where a father should have been, filled instead by political necessity and the weight of rebellion against an empire that would one day destroy everything she loved. The penance. Stare went deeper, showing Vader not just his direct victims, but the systemic suffering his actions had enabled. He was every being displaced by imperial occupation, every family separated by forced labor quotas, every prisoner tortured in facilities he'd authorized. The Empire's cruelties were vast and impersonal, but Vader had been the instrument of their enforcement. Every death he'd delivered, every rebel cell he'd destroyed, every planet he'd subjugated had contributed to a galaxy drowning in oppression. And beneath it all, the penance stare showed him the truth he'd spent 2 decades avoiding. Anakin Skywalker was not dead. He had not been killed by the man who became Darth Vader. They were the same person, and every choice Vader made was a choice Anakin had made. The armor was no excuse. The Emperor's influence was no justification. The dark side had not possessed him. He had chosen it, repeatedly, day after day, year after year. He could have stopped at any time, could have turned back, could have sought redemption instead of diving deeper into darkness. Every victim had been a choice. Every cruelty had been a decision. The comfortable lie that Anakin Skywalker had died dissolved under the penance stare's absolute truth. Darth Vader was Anakin Skywalker, and Anakin Skywalker was guilty. 3 seconds had passed in the physical world. To Vader, it felt like lifetimes. When Ghost Rider released his helmet, the Dark Lord collapsed to his knees, servo motors straining to support weight that had suddenly become unbearable. His respirator cycled frantically, the mechanical breathing ragged and irregular as his organic components struggled with the psychological shock. "No!" Vader gasped, the word barely audible through his vocabulator. "No, no, no!" Ghost Rider stood over him, Hellfire casting the Dark Lord in orange and crimson shadows. The spirit of vengeance delivered no speeches, made no judgments beyond what the penance stare had already revealed. The guilty soul had seen itself clearly for the first time in decades. That was punishment enough. But Vader was not like the stormtroopers or the fifth brother. He was not simply a soldier following orders or an inquisitor corrupted by ambition. He was something more, a being whose power and guilt existed on a scale that few in the galaxy could match. The penance stare had broken him, yes, but it had also ignited something that decades of dark-side corruption hadn't quite extinguished: rage. Not the cold, controlled rage that the Emperor had taught him to channel into power. Not the calculating fury that made him an efficient enforcer. This was something more primal: rage at himself, at what he'd become, at the universe that had led him to this moment. It was the rage of a man confronting the ruins of his life and finding no one to blame but himself. The dark side responded, flooding into Vader with the intensity that made his previous power seem like a candle compared to a star. Raw, unfiltered rage fueled by genuine emotion rather than calculated channeling. The Force screamed as Vader rose to his feet, his cape billowing in winds that had nothing to do with Lothal's atmosphere. "You dare," Vader said, his voice distorted by the sheer power coursing through him. "You dare to show me." He couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't articulate what Ghost Rider had shown him, because acknowledging it would mean accepting it, and acceptance was a form of surrender that Darth Vader had spent 2 decades avoiding. Instead, he attacked, not with precision or technique, but with overwhelming force. Vader seized every object in the facility: support beams, workstations, tool racks, the very walls themselves, and hurled them at Ghost Rider with telekinetic power that bordered on planetary in scale. The facility began to collapse, Durasteel screaming as it was torn apart by invisible hands. Ghost Rider mounted the Hell Cycle, Hellfire flaring as debris crashed around him. The spirit of vengeance could sense Vader's breaking point approaching, could feel the Dark Lord's psyche fracturing under the weight of revealed truth. This was the moment where beings either shattered completely or transformed into something new. The question was which path Vader would choose. A support beam the size of a freighter hurtled toward Ghost Rider, moving fast enough to pulverize anything in its path. The Hell Cycle accelerated, weaving through the falling debris with physics-defying agility. Vader pursued, no longer walking but using the Force to propel himself in great leaps, his armor and cape making him look like a vengeful shadow given form. "I am Darth Vader," he roared, the words echoing across the collapsing facility. "I am the Emperor's enforcer. I am the darkness that ends the light. I am..." "Guilty," Ghost Rider said, the word cutting through Vader's declarations like a vibroblade through flesh. Vader stopped, hovering in mid-air through Force levitation, his respirator cycling rapidly. The word had hit home because it was undeniable. Everything Ghost Rider had shown him was true. Every victim had been real. Every choice had been his own. For a moment, Darth Vader stood at a crossroads. He could continue fighting, could dive deeper into the dark side until it consumed whatever remained of his humanity, could become the monster fully and completely, burning away the last traces of conscience that the penance stare had exposed. Or he could acknowledge what he'd seen, accept it, and in accepting, begin the impossible journey towards something resembling redemption. The moment stretched, pregnant with possibility, as the most feared being in the galaxy confronted the most terrifying enemy he'd ever faced: himself. Then, from orbit, a new presence made itself known. Vast, calculating, and utterly malevolent. The Emperor had sensed his apprentices' distress through their Force bond, and Palpatine was never one to leave useful tools broken without first attempting repair. Ghost Rider's burning skull turned skyward, sensing the approaching darkness. And Darth Vader, still kneeling amid the ruins of the facility, felt the familiar touch of his master's will reaching down from the stars. The reckoning was not over. It had only just begun. Emperor Palpatine sat in his throne room aboard the superstar destroyer Executor, his face hidden beneath the shadows of his hood as he reached across light years through the Force. The disturbance that had drawn his attention was unprecedented, not the usual ripples of conflict or death, but something that felt like a wound in reality itself. And at the center of that wound, his most valuable apprentice was compromised. Palpatine's yellow eyes narrowed as he probed deeper, feeling the turmoil in Vader's mind. The carefully constructed walls of rage and hatred that had made the Dark Lord such an effective weapon were crumbling, revealing raw guilt and self-recrimination beneath. Something had broken through Vader's defenses in a way that even Palpatine himself had never managed. This could not be permitted. "Inform the fleet," Palpatine commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Set course for Lothal, maximum speed." On Lothal, Vader felt his master's presence like ice water through his veins. The Emperor's will pressed down through their Force bond, not with the crushing weight of dominance, but with something subtler, a reminder of purpose, of power, of the path Vader had chosen decades ago. Palpatine was offering an escape from the truth Ghost Rider had revealed, a way to retreat back into the comfortable certainty of the dark side. "My friend," Palpatine's voice whispered through the Force, intimate and poisonous. "Do not let this creature's tricks deceive you. What you saw were illusions, manipulations designed to weaken your resolve. You are Darth Vader, my greatest creation. Your past is dead. Only power matters. Only the Empire matters." Vader's respirator cycled as he processed the Emperor's words, feeling their familiar pull. How many times had Palpatine spoken thus, offering absolution for atrocities by reframing them as necessities? How many times had Vader accepted those justifications, burying doubt beneath layers of dark side conviction? But Ghost Rider's penance stare was not illusion. The spirit of vengeance didn't create false memories or manipulate perceptions. It simply showed truth, unfiltered, undeniable truth. And no amount of dark side philosophy could erase what Vader had experienced. "No," Vader said quietly, the word meant for himself as much as for the Emperor. "What I saw was real." Through the Force bond, Vader felt Palpatine's displeasure spike, followed immediately by calculation. The Emperor recognized that his apprentice was at a breaking point, and broken tools could either be reforged or replaced. Palpatine had contingency plans for both outcomes. "Then you are weaker than I believed," Palpatine said, his voice hardening. "Perhaps it is time for a new apprentice, one not so easily swayed by sentiment and regret." The threat was clear, and once it would have driven Vader to prove his loyalty through increased brutality. But something had shifted. The penance stare had cracked the foundation upon which Vader's identity rested, and threatening him now only highlighted how much of his existence had been defined by fear. Fear of loss, fear of inadequacy, fear of confronting what he'd become. Ghost Rider watched this internal struggle with the patience of an eternal being. The spirit of vengeance understood that judgment took many forms. Sometimes it was the penance stare itself. Sometimes it was simply holding up a mirror and forcing the guilty to see their own reflection clearly. "Your Emperor cannot save you from truth," Ghost Rider said, his layered voice cutting through Vader's turmoil. "He offers only deeper darkness, more victims, more guilt to carry until it crushes whatever remains of Anakin Skywalker." Vader's hands clenched into fists, servo motors whining. Anakin Skywalker was weak. He failed everyone he tried to protect. "Darth Vader is the same person," Ghost Rider interrupted. "You wear different armor, use a different name, but the soul remains, and that soul has murdered thousands." Before Vader could respond, alarms began wailing across Lothal. In orbit, hyperspace signatures bloomed as the Imperial fleet arrived en masse. The Executor emerged from hyperspace at the head of a formation that included 3 Star Destroyers, 2 Interdictor cruisers, and a dozen support vessels. It was overwhelming force, the kind of fleet deployment reserved for crushing entire rebel cells or subjugating uncooperative systems, all sent for one entity on a backwater world. Commander Titus received the fleet transmission with barely concealed terror. All Imperial personnel, clear sectors 1 through 10 immediately. Fleet is authorized for orbital bombardment protocols. Evacuate to designated safe zones within 15 minutes. Orbital bombardment, the Empire's final solution when ground forces proved inadequate. Titus had seen it used on rebel strongholds, watched from orbit as base Delta Zero protocols reduced entire cities to molten slag. Now they were preparing to use it on their own garrison world because one entity had proven impossible to stop. Ghost Rider felt the shift in Imperial strategy, sensed the gathering power in orbit as turbo-laser batteries charged and targeting solutions were calculated. The spirit of vengeance could survive many things, but a sustained orbital bombardment would destroy everything around him. The city, the workers he'd freed, the civilians who had nothing to do with the Empire's crimes. Judgment required precision. This was indiscriminate destruction. They will burn this city to kill you, Vader said, rising to his feet with visible effort. His armor bore scorch marks from Ghost Rider's Hellfire, and his respirator still cycled irregularly. The Emperor does not tolerate threats. If you remain, thousands will die. Innocence, Ghost Rider acknowledged, his burning skull turning toward Capital City in the distance. Your Emperor would murder his own subjects to eliminate one target. Yes, Vader's simple confirmation carried the weight of experience. He'd witnessed and participated in such tactics countless times. Palpatine viewed populations as expendable resources, useful when compliant, disposable when inconvenient. Ghost Rider's Hellfire burned brighter, fed by the righteous anger that came from confronting evil on such a scale. The Emperor's willingness to sacrifice his own people to maintain control was an atrocity that cried out for judgment. But the spirit of vengeance also understood tactical reality. He could not be in multiple places simultaneously, and orbital bombardment worked precisely because it removed ground-level variables. The Emperor comes, Vader continued, and something in his voice had changed. Not softer exactly, but less certain. He will not stop until you are destroyed or driven from this galaxy. Every world you visit will face the same threat: bombardment, genocide, whatever it takes. It was true, and Ghost Rider knew it. The Emperor commanded resources on a galactic scale, could deploy fleets and armies without limit, could transform Lothal into a tomb and move on to the next target without hesitation. The spirit of vengeance was powerful, perhaps even invincible by conventional measures, but even supernatural entities had limitations. Then I will face him, Ghost Rider said, mounting the Hell Cycle, and judge his crimes. Vader stepped forward, positioning himself between Ghost Rider and the facility exit. For a moment, the Dark Lord seemed to wrestle with conflicting impulses, decades of conditioning warring with the revelations the penance stare had forced upon him. I cannot let you reach the Emperor, Vader said finally. He is everything I have, my purpose, my master. Without him, I am free. Ghost Rider finished. Without him, you are free to choose redemption, to stop creating new victims, to end the cycle. Vader's respirator cycled several times, the mechanical breathing the only sound in the ruined facility. Then he shook his head. The gesture weighted with something that might have been despair. There is no redemption for what I have done. You showed me that yourself. The deaths are real. The suffering is real. Nothing can undo it. Truth, Ghost Rider acknowledged, but redemption is not about undoing past sins. It is about choosing to create no more. The philosophical debate was cut short by a new transmission from orbit. Commander Titus's voice crackled through every comlink in the city. Bombardment will commence in 10 minutes. All Imperial personnel to evacuation points immediately. This is not a drill. 10 minutes before the city burned. 10 minutes before thousands died to eliminate one target. The Empire's calculus was simple and brutal, and Ghost Rider could feel the gathering power in orbit as massive turbolaser batteries prepared to rain destruction down from the stars. But the spirit of vengeance also felt something else. A massive influx of dark side energy approaching Lothal at impossible speed. The Emperor himself, growing closer with every second, his presence like a black hole drawing all light into himself. Ghost Rider had judged many beings across countless worlds and realities, demons, gods, cosmic entities, and everything in between. But the Emperor represented something unique, a being who had systematically constructed an empire of suffering, who had orchestrated the genocide of an entire order, who wielded evil with the precision of a master craftsman. And unlike Vader, who carried genuine guilt beneath his darkness, the Emperor felt nothing, no remorse, no doubt, only hunger for power and the satisfaction of control. His soul was a void where conscience should have existed. The spirit of vengeance burned brighter, flames dancing with anticipation. This would be judgment on a scale that would echo across the galaxy. "I will not stop you," Vader said suddenly, stepping aside. The decision seemed to cost him something, his posture slumping slightly. "Face the Emperor if you wish, but know this. He has destroyed greater beings than you. Jedi Masters, ancient Sith Lords, creatures of the dark side that existed before the Republic all fell before him." Ghost Rider regarded Vader for a long moment, reading the conflict in the Dark Lord's presence. The pennant stare had broken something in Vader, but it had also planted a seed, the possibility of choice, of change, of becoming something other than the Emperor's weapon. Whether that seed would grow or wither remained to be seen. "Your master's reign ends tonight," Ghost Rider said, the Hell Cycle's engine roaring to life. "The guilty must burn, and his crimes are written across star systems." Vader watched as Ghost Rider rode toward the city center, leaving a trail of hellfire in his wake. The Dark Lord stood alone in the ruined facility, surrounded by the debris of his interrupted rampage, and felt the weight of choice pressing down upon him. He could follow the Emperor's commands, could help destroy this entity, could prove his loyalty and bury the truths the penance stare had revealed beneath renewed atrocity. Or he could do nothing, could stand aside and let events unfold, could, for the first time in 20 years, refuse to be the instrument of evil. Above, the Executor hung in Lothal's orbit like a dagger pointed at the planet's heart. And aboard that vessel, Emperor Palpatine smiled, confident in his power, certain of his control, utterly unprepared for the judgment that was about to arrive on wheels of Hellfire. The Executor was a monument to Imperial might. 19 kilometers of durasteel and death, bristling with enough firepower to reduce planets to ash. In its command throne room, a space designed to inspire fear and demonstrate absolute power, Emperor Palpatine stood before the viewport and gazed down at Lothal with eyes that gleamed yellow in the darkness. "Status of the bombardment," he commanded, his voice deceptively soft. "Ready to commence on your order, my lord," Admiral Piet responded, hands clasped behind his back in parade rest. "Turbo laser batteries are charged and targeting solutions locked. The entity is currently in Sector 4, approaching the city center." Palpatine nodded slowly, reaching out through the Force to examine the disturbance that had brought him here. What he found was fascinating. A void in the Force, yes, but also a presence that existed independent of it, like discovering that the galaxy operated under a second set of physical laws that the Sith had never encountered. "Do not fire yet," Palpatine said, his mind already working through possibilities. "I wish to see this creature myself. If it is as powerful as the reports suggest, perhaps it can be turned bound to my service. Another weapon for the Empire. My lord, the entity has proven extremely hostile to Imperial forces. It has, yes, broken minds, disrupted operations, challenged my apprentice." Palpatine waved a dismissive hand. But these were merely tests. It was establishing dominance, as any apex predator must. Now it will learn that there is only one true power in this galaxy. Palpatine touched a control on his throne's armrest, activating a communication channel. Lord Vader, you will escort this entity to the Executor. Do not engage it in combat. Simply guide it to me. There was a long pause before Vader's response came through, his breathing audible over the comm. Master, I do not believe this entity can be controlled. It is not motivated by power or fear. It seeks only judgment, yes. I have sensed as much. Palpatine's smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp in the throne room's shadows. But judgment requires a judge, and judges can be influenced, corrupted, or destroyed. I have bent the will of Jedi Masters. I have broken the spirits of entire orders. This creature will be no different. What Palpatine didn't understand, what his absolute confidence in the dark side prevented him from understanding, was that Ghost Rider was not a Force user. The spirit of vengeance drew power from sources that predated the Sith, operated under principles that had nothing to do with the cosmic energy binding the galaxy. The Emperor was preparing to negotiate with a hurricane, to bargain with gravity itself. On Lothal's surface, Ghost Rider rode through capital city's empty streets, the hell cycle's flames reflecting off abandoned storefronts and evacuation notices. The Imperial garrison had cleared out completely, leaving behind only automated defenses and the occasional protocol droid too slow to escape. The city felt like a tomb. All life fled in anticipation of the bombardment. But Ghost Rider could sense them, the citizens who hadn't evacuated, either because they had nowhere to go or because they'd decided that facing the Empire's bombardment was preferable to living under its rule. They huddled in basements and reinforced shelters, holding loved ones close, praying to gods who seemed deaf to their suffering. More victims of the Empire's cruelty, more names to add to the ledger. Vader's presence approached from behind, the Dark Lord moving with Force-enhanced speed to intercept Ghost Rider's path. When he materialized from an alley, his armor still bore the scorch marks from their previous encounter, and his stance suggested wariness rather than aggression. "The Emperor wishes to speak with you," Vader said, his vocabulator making the words sound like a formal declaration. "He offers negotiation." Ghost Rider's burning skull turned to regard Vader, reading the conflict in the Dark Lord's posture. Something had changed since their fight. The certainty that had defined Vader's movements was gone, replaced by hesitation that didn't quite align with the Emperor's commands. "Your Emperor cannot negotiate with judgment," Ghost Rider said. "He can only face it." "I know." Vader's admission came quietly, almost lost beneath his respirators cycling. "But he will not stop until he understands what you are, and his understanding typically comes through destruction. If you face him aboard the Executor, thousands below will be spared the bombardment." It was manipulation, of course. A tactical play to remove Ghost Rider from the populated area and position him where the Empire's full might could be brought to bear. But it was also true. The Emperor would burn Lothal to ash if it meant eliminating a threat to his power. Ghost Rider considered for a moment, weighing options. Then the Hell Cycle's flames intensified, and the spirit of vengeance made its decision. "Then I will bring judgment to your Emperor's throne." Vader transmitted coordinates to a nearby Imperial shuttle, one of the few craft that hadn't evacuated with the rest of the garrison. It sat on a landing platform, automated systems humming, ready to carry passengers to orbit. Ghost Rider rode toward it, the Hell Cycle's engine echoing through empty streets. As they approached the shuttle, Vader spoke again, his voice carrying an edge of something that might have been warning or regret. "The Emperor is the most powerful being in the galaxy. He orchestrated the fall of the Republic, the destruction of the Jedi Order, and the rise of an empire that spans millions of worlds. He has studied the dark side for longer than most species live. If you face him, he will use every weapon at his disposal. So will I, Ghost Rider responded simply. The shuttle ride to orbit was silent, except for the Hell Cycle's idling engine, a sound that seemed to disturb the shuttle's systems, making instruments flicker and navigation computers glitch. Vader stood at the opposite end of the passenger compartment, his presence in the Force conflicted and turbulent. "Why do you serve him?" Ghost Rider asked suddenly, the question cutting through the silence. "You have seen your sins. You know what you have become, yet you still follow the Emperor's commands." Vader was quiet for a long moment, his respirator the only sound. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weariness that decades of dark side conditioning couldn't quite mask. "Because without him, I have nothing, no purpose, no identity. The Emperor is all that remains of my life. He found me burning on Mustafar, rebuilt me, gave me direction when all I knew was pain and loss. To turn against him would be to admit that everything I have done in his service, every death, every atrocity, was meaningless." "It was," Ghost Rider said, his voice carrying absolute certainty. "Your crimes serve only the Emperor's hunger for power. They have built nothing, protected no one, created only suffering." Vader's hands clenched, servo motors whining. "I know." The admission hung in the air between them, two words that carried the weight of 2 decades of denial. Vader knew, had always known. On some level buried beneath rage and dark-side philosophy, the penance stare had simply forced him to confront what he'd spent years avoiding. The shuttle docked with the Executor, magnetic clamps engaging with a metallic thud. The boarding ramp extended, revealing a corridor lined with stormtroopers, not in combat formation, but in ceremonial positions. An honor guard, as if Ghost Rider were a dignitary rather than a threat. The Emperor's arrogance on full display. Ghost Rider rode the Hell Cycle down the ramp, Hellfire reflecting off polished armor and pristine corridors. The stormtroopers didn't move, didn't react, standing at perfect attention despite the supernatural entity passing within meters of them. Vader followed, his cape billowing behind him, playing the role of escort, even as internal conflict tore at his resolve. The throne room doors opened automatically, revealing a vast chamber dominated by the Emperor's throne and the massive viewport beyond it. Lothal hung in that viewport, vulnerable and small against the void of space. And before it all, Emperor Palpatine waited, his hood casting his face in shadow despite the chamber's lighting. "Welcome," Palpatine said, his voice carrying false warmth. "I have heard much about you, mysterious traveler. You have disrupted my Empire's operations, challenged my apprentice, and demonstrated power that exists outside the Force itself. Most impressive." Ghost Rider dismounted from the Hell Cycle, standing before the Emperor without deference or fear. The spirit of vengeance had faced cosmic entities and elder demons. A mortal man, no matter how steeped in darkness, was not intimidating. "You are Emperor Palpatine," Ghost Rider said, each word carrying the weight of absolute judgment. "Architect of the Jedi Purge, orchestrator of the Clone Wars, builder of an empire founded on oppression and fear. Your crimes are written across star systems. Your victims number in the billions." Palpatine's smile widened, and for the first time, Ghost Rider felt something that registered as genuine emotion from the Emperor. Amusement. "Crimes," Palpatine repeated, savoring the word. "Such a limiting concept. You speak as if morality is objective, as if the galaxy operates under universal laws of right and wrong. But I have transcended such primitive thinking. I am beyond good and evil. I am power itself, and power writes its own rules." "Power is temporary," Ghost Rider responded. "Judgment is eternal." The Emperor rose from his throne, his movements deliberate and theatrical. Lightning crackled around his fingertips, not aggressive but present a warning, a demonstration. "I have felt your presence in the Force," Palpatine said, circling Ghost Rider like a predator examining prey. Or rather, I have felt your absence. You do not exist within the cosmic energy that binds all living things. Fascinating, a being from outside this galaxy's natural order. I am the spirit of vengeance, Ghost Rider said, turning to keep the Emperor in view. I exist wherever guilt exists, wherever the innocent cry out for justice. Your galaxy drowns in both. Palpatine stopped circling, positioning himself between Ghost Rider and the viewport behind him. Lothal hung like a jewel, beautiful and fragile. The Emperor's hand gestured toward it, the movement casual but weighted with threat. Then let us discuss justice, Palpatine said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I offer you a choice. Join me. Become my weapon, my instrument of judgment against those who truly deserve it. The corrupt senators who enabled the Republic's fall. The criminal syndicates who profit from suffering. The rebel terrorists who would plunge the galaxy into chaos. Together, we could bring order through righteous punishment. It was a masterful manipulation, offering Ghost Rider the very thing the spirit of vengeance was designed to deliver, but twisted to serve the Emperor's ends. Palpatine had corrupted Jedi with similar offers, had turned guardians of peace into instruments of his will. But the spirit of vengeance was not a Jedi, was not even fully mortal. And Palpatine's words rang hollow against the weight of his accumulated sins. You seek to turn judgment into a tool of oppression, Ghost Rider said, his voice layered with the screams of the damned, to corrupt vengeance itself. I have faced demons with more honor than you possess. Palpatine's expression hardened, amusement vanishing like smoke. Then you have made your choice. Lord Vader, restrain this creature while I demonstrate why none challenge the Emperor and survive. Vader stood motionless, his respirator cycling steadily. The command hung in the air, waiting for the Dark Lord's obedience. Obedience that had been automatic for 20 years. No, Vader said quietly. The single word echoed through the throne room like a thunderclap. Palpatine's head snapped toward his apprentice, yellow eyes blazing with sudden fury. For the first time since Ghost Rider's arrival, the Emperor's confidence cracked. What did you say? The throne room of the executor fell into a silence so complete that even the ship's ambient hum seemed to hold its breath. Emperor Palpatine stared at his apprentice, the shadows around him deepening as dark side energy responded to his sudden rage. Darth Vader stood unmoved, his respirator the only sound breaking the stillness. I said no, Master. Vader's voice was steady, though each word seemed to cost him something. 20 years of conditioning, of punishment and reward, of absolute obedience carefully cultivated through pain and purpose, all of it screaming at him to submit, to kneel, to serve as he had always served. But Ghost Rider's penance stare had cracked that foundation, and now Vader was making a choice that terrified him more than any enemy he'd ever faced. Palpatine's face twisted with fury, the carefully maintained facade of benevolent authority dissolving to reveal the creature beneath. His hands rose, and purple-white lightning erupted from his fingertips, not toward Ghost Rider, but toward his treacherous apprentice. The Emperor's rage was personal now, focused on the tool that had dared to develop a will of its own. You forget yourself, Lord Vader! Palpatine shrieked, his voice losing its cultured refinement. I created you. I saved you from death on Mustafar. Everything you are exists because I willed it. And you dare defy me? The Force lightning struck Vader's armor, and the Dark Lord's body convulsed as electricity coursed through his cybernetics. This was the Emperor's favorite punishment. Agony delivered through the very systems that kept Vader alive, a reminder that Palpatine held power over his apprentice's continued existence. Vader had endured it countless times, had learned to absorb it while maintaining his service. This time, he endured it while standing his ground. You created nothing, Vader gasped between respirator cycles, his vocabulator crackling from electrical interference. Anakin Skywalker made his own choices, followed his own fear and anger. You merely provided direction. Palpatine intensified the lightning, pouring decades of Sith mastery into torture that should have reduced Vader to a smoking husk. The Dark Lord fell to one knee, servo motors screaming protests, but his presence in the Force remained defiant. Something had changed in Vader. The acceptance of his own guilt had paradoxically freed him from the Emperor's most effective control mechanism. You couldn't threaten someone with damnation when they'd already acknowledged they were damned. Ghost Rider watched this exchange with burning patience, reading the dynamics between master and apprentice. The Emperor's power was vast, true enough, but it was also brittle, built on domination rather than genuine loyalty, on fear rather than respect. And brittle things shattered when struck correctly. "Enough!" Ghost Rider said, his voice cutting through Palpatine's rage. "Your apprentice is no longer your concern. I am." Palpatine released Vader, letting his broken apprentice collapse onto the deck plating, and turned the full weight of his attention to Ghost Rider. The Emperor's face was a mask of hatred now, all pretense of negotiation abandoned. He extended both hands, and Force lightning erupted in a torrent that would have vaporized a Jedi Master. The Hellfire consumed it, drawing power from the dark side energy, just as it had with the fifth brother and Vader. The throne room's temperature spiked as supernatural flames burned brighter, fed by the very attack meant to destroy them. Palpatine's eyes widened fractionally, the first genuine surprise the Emperor had experienced in decades. "Impossible," Palpatine hissed. "The dark side is absolute. No being can resist." "Your dark side is nothing," Ghost Rider interrupted, advancing on the Emperor, a pale shadow of true darkness. "You have studied corruption for a lifetime. I am corruption's judgment, forged in the fires of damnation itself." Palpatine retreated, his mind racing through options with the speed of desperation. He'd faced Jedi Masters, ancient Sith Lords, Force entities that existed before the Republic. All had fallen before his power, his planning, his absolute mastery of the dark side. But this was something outside his experience, outside the parameters he'd spent a lifetime understanding. The Emperor reached out through the Force, attempting to dominate Ghost Rider's mind as he'd dominated so many others. It was a technique that had broken the wills of senators and generals, that had turned loyalty to dust and replaced it with obedience. Palpatine's consciousness crashed against Ghost Rider's like a tidal wave against a mountain, and broke. The spirit of vengeance had no mind to dominate in the conventional sense. It was purpose given form, judgment made manifest. Trying to control it was like trying to negotiate with the concept of gravity or bargain with the inevitability of death. It simply was, eternal and immutable. Palpatine staggered, clutching his head as the backlash of his failed attack sent pain lancing through his skull. For the first time in his long life, the Emperor felt something he'd inflicted on countless others but never experienced himself: helplessness. "This cannot be," Palpatine gasped, his voice cracking. "I am the dark side. I am power incarnate. I am..." "Guilty," Ghost Rider said, reaching out with burning hands. Palpatine tried to dodge, to use the superhuman speed the Force granted, but Ghost Rider moved with supernatural precision. One flaming hand closed around the Emperor's wrist, and Palpatine screamed, not from physical pain, though the Hellfire seared his flesh, but from something far worse. The touch created a connection, and through that connection, the spirit of vengeance could feel the full weight of Palpatine's crimes. They stretched back decades, perhaps centuries, if the rumors of his unnatural longevity were true. The orchestration of the Clone Wars, manipulating both sides while millions died. The corruption of Anakin Skywalker, targeting a hero's fears and turning him into a weapon. The execution of Order 66, the genocide of an entire religious order. the construction of an empire built on systematic oppression, slavery, and fear, and beneath it all, the thing that made Palpatine unique among the guilty: complete absence of remorse. Every other being Ghost Rider had judged carried some kernel of conscience, some buried acknowledgement that their actions had been wrong. The fifth brother had known guilt. Vader's soul had burned with it. Even the lowest stormtrooper retained some humanity. Palpatine felt nothing. His crimes brought him only satisfaction, his victims only contempt. He was a void where empathy should exist, a black hole of malevolence that had consumed thousands of lives without ever questioning whether he had the right. "Look into my eyes," Ghost Rider commanded. Palpatine tried to close his eyes, to turn away, to use every technique of Sith mental discipline to avoid the gaze of those empty sockets. But Ghost Rider's other hand came up, gripping the Emperor's face with burning fingers, and forced their eyes to meet. The penance stare activated. Emperor Palpatine, Dark Lord of the Sith, master manipulator and architect of the Galactic Empire, experienced something he'd believed himself immune to. Consequences. He was every Jedi killed in Order 66, feeling the betrayal as clone troopers turned on their generals. He was Master Yoda, forced into exile while his order burned. He was Mace Windu, falling from a shattered window after trusting in the wrong person's potential for good. He was thousands of younglings, cut down before they could understand why their guardians had failed them. He was every being enslaved by the Empire's machine, worked to death in factories and mines while producing weapons for their own oppression. He was planets subjugated, populations displaced, families separated by imperial decree. He was the suffering of Alderaan, even though it hadn't yet been destroyed. The penance stare showed not just past crimes, but future ones, the trajectory of evil extending forward through time. He was Anakin Skywalker on Mustafar, burning alive while his master watched from above. Was Padme Amidala dying of a broken heart? Was Luke and Leia growing up without parents because of calculated manipulation? Was every being whose life had been twisted or destroyed by Palpatine's hunger for power? But more than the specific victims, the penance stare showed Palpatine something far more devastating: the cumulative weight of systemic evil. The empire he'd built had created suffering on a scale that individual atrocities couldn't match. Millions of beings living in fear, hope crushed under the boot of totalitarian control, entire generations growing up knowing only oppression, the galaxy's light, dimmed by his deliberate design. And through it all, Palpatine felt what his victims had felt: the desperate hope that someone would stop him, the prayers that someone, somewhere, would stand against his tyranny, the dying wish that evil would not go unpunished. The penance stare showed Palpatine his victim's hope, and then showed him that hope being answered. 3 seconds in the physical world, an eternity compressed into impossible awareness. When Ghost Rider released him, Emperor Palpatine collapsed onto the deck, his body convulsing. But unlike the others who'd received the penance stare, Palpatine did not weep or scream. He did not break into confession or beg for mercy. Instead, he laughed. It was a broken, rasping sound, emerging from a throat raw with screaming. Palpatine pulled himself to his knees, his face a ruin of burned flesh and madness, and his yellow eyes blazed with something beyond rage or hatred. "Magnificent," Palpatine whispered, his voice a shattered mockery of its former authority. "I saw them all, every single one. And do you know what I felt?" Ghost Rider stood silent, the spirit of vengeance recognizing what it had encountered. A soul so thoroughly corrupted that even the penance stare couldn't break it. Palpatine hadn't learned remorse from experiencing his victim's suffering. He'd learned satisfaction. "Pride," Palpatine continued, pulling himself upright through sheer force of will. "Pride in the magnitude of my achievement. Do you understand? I shaped the galaxy, billions of lives bent to my design. That is power beyond your comprehension, spirit that is apotheosis. The Emperor raised his hands, and dark side energy exploded from him with unprecedented force. Not lightning. This was raw power, the fundamental corruption of the Force itself made manifest. The throne room's viewport cracked, durasteel walls groaned, and reality itself seemed to bend under the weight of Palpatine's fury. "I am the dark side," Palpatine roared, his voice echoing with unnatural resonance. "I have transcended morality, surpassed conscience, elevated myself beyond the petty limitations of guilt and remorse. Your judgment means nothing because I judge myself righteous in all I have done." Ghost Rider stood unmoved as the dark side storm raged around him, hellfire and cosmic corruption creating a maelstrom that threatened to tear the throne room apart. The spirit of vengeance understood now. Palpatine was beyond redemption, not because redemption was impossible, but because he rejected its very concept. He'd committed sins so vast and remained so completely unrepentant that traditional judgment couldn't touch him. But the penance stare wasn't the only weapon the spirit of vengeance possessed. Ghost Rider's chain manifested from Hellfire, wrapping around Palpatine before the Emperor could react. The Emperor's dark side storm struck the chain and dissipated, the Hellfire consuming his power just as it had consumed his lightning. Palpatine struggled, calling upon decades of Sith mastery, but supernatural strength held him fast. "If you will not accept judgment," Ghost Rider said, his voice carrying absolute finality, "then you will face damnation." The Hellfire intensified, not burning Palpatine's body, but reaching deeper, toward his connection to the Force itself, toward the dark side power he'd spent a lifetime cultivating. The spirit of vengeance couldn't kill the Emperor, not permanently. But it could do something worse. It could sever his connection to the power he'd made his identity. Palpatine screamed as he felt the dark side slipping away, the connection that had sustained him for decades beginning to fray. Without the Force, he was just a mortal man, ancient, frail, kept alive only through Sith alchemy and willpower. He would survive, but only as a shadow of what he'd been. "No!" Palpatine shrieked, his voice raw with genuine fear for the first time. "You cannot. The dark side is mine. I am the darkness." "You are nothing," Ghost Rider said, and pulled. The Emperor's connection to the Force shattered. The moment Emperor Palpatine's connection to the Force severed, the galaxy itself seemed to shudder. Across star systems, Force-sensitive beings felt the disturbance. Not a death in the Force, but something arguably worse. A presence that had shaped the galaxy's dark side for decades suddenly gone silent, leaving a void that reality rushed to fill. On the Executor's throne room deck, Palpatine collapsed into himself, the supernatural vitality that had sustained his ancient body, fleeing like water through broken fingers. His flesh sagged, age spots blooming across skin no longer held together by Sith alchemy. The yellow corruption faded from his eyes, replaced by ordinary human brown that reflected only terror and comprehension. He was mortal now, truly, completely mortal. And for a being who'd spent decades viewing mortality as weakness to be transcended, the realization was more devastating than any physical torture. "What have you done?" Palpatine gasped, his voice no longer carrying the resonant authority of a Dark Lord, but the quavering rasp of an old man. "The Empire. My empire requires my guidance. Without me, it will collapse into chaos. Billions will suffer." Ghost Rider released the chain, letting it dissolve back into Hellfire. The spirit of vengeance regarded the broken Emperor with eyes that held neither pity nor triumph, only the neutral assessment of judgment delivered. "Your empire was built on suffering," Ghost Rider said. "Its collapse will bring pain, yes, but also opportunity. The galaxy will choose its own path now, without your hand guiding it toward darkness." Palpatine tried to rise, but his legs wouldn't support him. Decades of Sith enhancement had hidden the truth. His body was ancient, sustained only by the dark side power that Ghost Rider had severed. Now that power was gone, and Sheev Palpatine was just an old man wearing the robes of an emperor. "Lord Vader," Palpatine croaked, turning toward his apprentice with desperate hope. "Help me. Together we can. We can rebuild what this creature has destroyed. Your power, my knowledge. We can." "No." Vader had risen from where he'd fallen, his damaged armor sparking but functional. He approached his former master slowly, each step weighted with the significance of 20 years of service ending. When he stood over Palpatine, the Emperor looked impossibly small, all the menace and power stripped away, revealing the petty tyrant beneath. "You showed me the power of the dark side," Vader said, his vocabulator lending his words a finality that human voice couldn't match. "You taught me that emotion could be channeled into strength, that anger could forge purpose from pain, but you also showed me that such power demands a price, and I have been paying that price every day since Mustafar." Vader's hand moved to his lightsaber hilt, and Palpatine's eyes widened. "You would kill me? Your master? The one who saved you?" "No." Vader's hand moved past his lightsaber to the controls on his belt. "I will not kill you, but I will no longer serve you. You will live, Emperor, to see your empire crumble without your guidance, to experience the helplessness you inflicted on billions. That is justice." Vader turned to Ghost Rider, and for a moment, the two cursed beings, one trapped in armor of his own making, one bound to an eternal purpose, regarded each other with something approaching understanding. "What will you do now?" Vader asked. "The galaxy has many more guilty souls, more inquisitors, more imperial officers, more beings who have committed atrocities in the name of order. I will judge them," Ghost Rider said simply, "each one in time. But the greatest evil has been addressed. The architect of systematic oppression has fallen. The rest will follow." Ghost Rider turned toward the throne room's exit, where stormtroopers still stood in their ceremonial positions, unaware that their emperor had been reduced to a mortal shell. But before he could depart, Vader spoke again. "And what of me?" The question carried vulnerability that the Dark Lord rarely displayed. "I have committed crimes that dwarf most beings in this galaxy. The penance stare showed me every victim, every choice. Am I not also deserving of judgment?" Ghost Rider paused, his burning skull turning to regard Vader. "You have already judged yourself. The penance stare forced you to witness your sins, and unlike your master, you felt remorse. You carry that weight now and will carry it for the rest of your life. That is your punishment." "Is there?" Vader hesitated, the words difficult. "Is redemption possible for someone like me?" The spirit of vengeance was silent for a long moment, and when it spoke, the layered voice carried something that might have been sympathy. "Redemption is always possible, but it requires more than remorse. It requires action. You must choose, Darth Vader, what you will become now that you are no longer the Emperor's weapon. Will you continue to serve darkness, or will you forge a new path?" Vader looked down at his hands, black gloves hiding the mechanical limbs beneath, instruments that had choked the life from countless victims. Then he looked at Palpatine, cowering on the deck, powerless and afraid. The Emperor who had shaped his life for 2 decades, reduced to mortal fragility. "I don't know," Vader admitted. "I don't know what I am without the Emperor, without purpose, without—" "Then discover it," Ghost Rider interrupted. "You have time. Use it wisely." The Hell Cycle materialized beside Ghost Rider, flames dancing across its frame. The spirit of vengeance mounted it, preparing to depart, when Palpatine's voice rang out one final time, not with authority, but with the impotent rage of a tyrant facing irrelevance. "This changes nothing," Palpatine shrieked, his aged voice cracking. "The Empire will continue, I have contingencies, successors, plans within plans. You think severing my connection to the Force will stop what I've built? I am the Galactic Empire. You are an old man, Ghost Rider said flatly, and old men are forgotten. The Hell Cycle roared to life, and Ghost Rider rode through the throne room toward the hangar bay, leaving behind an emperor reduced to mortality and an apprentice freed from bondage. Behind him, Admiral Piet and other officers would soon discover their leader's condition and scramble to maintain order. Some would seize opportunity, declaring themselves warlords of their own territories. Others would try to uphold imperial doctrine without understanding that the doctrine itself was built on one man's vision. The Empire would fracture. It was inevitable now, without Palpatine's iron will holding disparate factions together. There would be suffering in the transition, warlords fighting over territory, systems declaring independence, the chaos that followed any collapsing regime. But there would also be hope. The rebellion would gain strength, no longer fighting against an invincible emperor, but against divided factions. Planets would throw off imperial occupation. Force sensitives would emerge from hiding. The galaxy would remember that tyranny could be challenged, that evil, no matter how powerful, could fall. Ghost Rider departed the Executor aboard the same shuttle that had brought him, descending through Lothal's atmosphere as the massive superstar destroyer hung in orbit like a leaderless beast. The bombardment order had been forgotten in the chaos of the throne room, and Capital City remained intact, its citizens emerging from shelters to wonder why the sky hadn't fallen. The Hell Cycle touched down in the industrial sector where the freed workers had fled. They emerged from hiding cautiously, recognizing the burning figure who had liberated them from the labor camp. An elderly human woman approached, her face lined with years of suffering under imperial rule. "Are you—" she began, then paused, searching for words. "Are you here to save us, to free the galaxy?" Ghost Rider regarded her with burning eye sockets, and the spirit of vengeance delivered an uncomfortable truth. "I am not a savior. I am judgment. I have punished the guilty, but the galaxy's freedom must be won by those who live here. The Empire will fall, but what comes next depends on choices made by beings like you." The woman nodded slowly, understanding in her eyes. She'd lived long enough to know that freedom wasn't granted. It was seized, fought for, defended. The burning demon had removed the galaxy's greatest tyrant, but the work of building something better would fall to ordinary people making extraordinary choices. "Then we'll fight," she said simply. "We'll contact the rebellion, spread word that the Emperor has fallen. We'll—" "Careful," Ghost Rider warned. "Palpatine lives, though diminished. His empire remains, though fracturing. The fight is not over. It has only entered a new phase." The woman smiled grimly. "We've been fighting for years. We can keep fighting. Thank you, whatever you are." Ghost Rider nodded once, then turned the Hell Cycle toward the sky. The spirit of vengeance had delivered judgment on this galaxy's greatest evil, but countless smaller evils remained. Inquisitors still hunting survivors. Imperial officers still oppressing populations. Criminals still exploiting the vulnerable. The galaxy needed judgment, and the spirit of vengeance would provide it. But first, there was something else requiring attention. Ghost Rider could feel it, a pull, familiar and insistent. The dimensional rift that had brought him to this galaxy was still open, a wound between realities that wouldn't close on its own. Mephisto's machinations had torn him from his home universe, and now the spirit of vengeance needed to decide: remain in this galaxy, continuing to judge the guilty across star systems, or return to Earth and the duties waiting there. The Hell Cycle's engine growled as Ghost Rider considered. This galaxy had its own protectors, rebels fighting for freedom, surviving Jedi hiding in shadows, ordinary beings making heroic choices. The spirit of vengeance had delivered the judgment most needed, removing the architect of systematic evil. The rest would unfold as it would. Earth still needed its Ghost Rider, still had its own guilty souls requiring punishment. Ghost Rider rode toward the dimensional rift, visible to supernatural senses, even though scanners and sensors registered nothing. The Hell Cycle accelerated beyond physical limitations, flames burning brighter as it approached the tear in reality. Behind him, Lothal grew smaller, the Star Destroyers in orbit beginning their confused withdrawal as news of the Emperor's condition spread through Imperial channels. The spirit of vengeance crossed the threshold between galaxies, dimensional boundaries stretching and compressing, and then roared back onto Earth's highways, the familiar sights and sounds of his home reality surrounding him once more. The dimensional rift sealed behind him, reality knitting itself closed, now that the anomaly had been corrected. Johnny Blaze felt control returning as the spirit of vengeance's purpose in the Star Wars galaxy reached completion. He pulled the motorcycle to the side of a desert highway, the flames extinguishing as his skull transformed back into human features. He sat there for a long moment, processing memories that felt both alien and immediate. A galaxy far, far away, an emperor brought low, an apprentice freed from bondage, a rebellion given hope through the removal of seemingly invincible evil. The spirit of vengeance had left its mark on a distant galaxy, and that galaxy would never be the same. Johnny Blaze started his motorcycle, ordinary now, no longer the Hell Cycle, and continued down the highway. Earth had its own evils requiring attention, its own guilty souls needing judgment. The work was never finished, the ledger never complete. But for one galaxy, at least, the weight of accumulated sins had been addressed. The guilty had burned, and judgment had been served. The galaxy far, far away would remember the burning entity that had appeared on Lothal and changed everything. Imperial records would classify it as unexplained phenomenon, too dangerous to acknowledge publicly. Rebel intelligence would spread rumors of a spirit of justice that had broken the Emperor's power, giving hope to resistance cells across star systems. Darth Vader disappeared from public view after that day, his connection to the Force damaged by the Penance Stare's revelations, but not severed like his masters. He would spend years in solitude, wrestling with the weight of his crimes and the possibility of redemption. Whether he would ultimately choose light or continue serving darkness remained unwritten, a choice that would define the rest of his existence. Emperor Palpatine, stripped of his connection to the Force, became a political figurehead only, mortal, vulnerable, and increasingly irrelevant as his empire fragmented into competing factions. Some historians would later argue that the Empire's true fall began not with the Battle of Endor, but on Lothal, when an entity from beyond their reality delivered judgment on their greatest tyrant. The rebellion grew stronger in the wake of the Emperor's diminishment, inspiring systems to throw off Imperial control with renewed vigor. Mon Mothma and Bail Organa coordinated resistance with hope they hadn't felt in years. The Force, no longer suppressed by Palpatine's overwhelming dark side presence, began to flow more freely, and surviving Jedi felt the change like prisoners tasting fresh air after years in confinement. Ghost Rider's intervention had not saved the galaxy. That work would take years, perhaps generations. But it had removed the single greatest obstacle to freedom, had shown that even the most powerful tyrant could fall, and had planted seeds of hope that would bloom into rebellion across 1,000 worlds. The spirit of vengeance had delivered judgment. The rest was up to those who remained. On distant Earth, Johnny Blaze rode through the night, unaware that his actions had inspired legends across dimensional boundaries. But the spirit of vengeance knew, and in the hellfire that danced around the Ghost Rider's skull, those who looked closely might have seen reflections of distant stars and the faces of beings from another galaxy who whispered thanks to a demon who had brought justice. The guilty must burn. In every reality, across all dimensions, that truth remained constant. And somewhere, in the vast expanse of hyperspace between star systems, A small group of freed workers told their story to anyone who would listen. The story of a demon wreathed in flames who had judged an empire and found it wanting. The galaxy would never forget the day Ghost Rider brought Hellfire to the stars. May the Force be with you. More stories await.